Welcome everyone to Working Through It Wednesday with the Behavioral Alliance of South Carolina. Today we are here with an amazing occupational therapist, Tabitha Tatum, to share with us a little bit about how mental health supports in schools coincides with her occupational therapy. Before I introduce her, please don't forget to follow our QR code here and fill out the survey, just a quick 5 questions to let us know how to best provide content. So, without further ado, we have the wonderful Tabitha Tatum, who received her graduate degree and a master's in occupational therapy from the University of St. Augustine and her undergraduate degree in psychology from the University of James Madison. She's here to tell us a little bit about how she worked as a travel therapist before and now how she's providing teletherapy within the schools to support occupational therapy and how that supports the mind and the body. So without further ado, Tabitha, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me, Erin. I'm very excited to share. So as you mentioned, I'm an occupational therapist, and I always like to just kind of talk about what OTs do on a day-to-day because that can really change depending on what age group we're working with. Sorry about my dog.
No worries.
So I work with pediatrics, so I work with kids, and our goal as occupational therapists working with kiddos with either congenital or acquired disabilities is to get them to be as independent as possible with all of their daily activities. So we call these ADLs, or activities of daily living. So that includes bathing, dressing, feeding, toileting, grooming, social participation, and even emotional regulation. So as an OT, we learn in school the theory, the biology, and the neuroscience behind the importance of movement and how that relates to learning specifically. So I'll kind of delve into that briefly later on. But as you mentioned, Erin, prior to now, I was working as a traveling occupational therapist. So pretty much every few months, I'm placed in a different state, a different facility, working with different people. So I've worked in outpatient pediatrics, I've worked in skilled nursing facilities, and I've worked in schools. So right now, I'm doing part-time working in the schools via telehealth, actually, and then I'm part-time in a clinic. So, but kind of the best of both worlds. But last year, I was just a school-based OT. So during the pandemic, I had the opportunity to sort of be a part of the transition over to telehealth for therapy, as well as remote learning for our educational purposes. So there were a lot of good things that kind of came out of that, but there were lots of challenges as well. So across the board, as therapists, parents, and educators, we saw decreased attention, decreased focus, and unfortunately increased rates of depression and even teen suicide rates. And this is due to a combination of things like less social interactions with their peers and also less physical movement. We were, constrained to small areas and you're not able to go to a lot of different places and interact with a lot of different people. So inevitably that does affect our mental health. So that's kind of a nice segue into a little bit of the biology and the neuroscience behind movement and its relationship to mental health. So some of the physical changes that we can expect with movement is it increases our circulation, it drains lymphatic congestion, nourishes our heart and our lungs, which is so incredibly important, not just now, but always. Increases our metabolism, and it helps stabilize our moods by releasing these happy chemicals. So they're neurotransmitters. And pretty much the same chemical cocktail that's found in an antidepressant is released and surges throughout your body when you're exercising. So the body is, pretty awesome, flooded with endorphins, oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, all of those happy hormones that make us feel good as our heart is beating and our breath is flowing. So not only is this great for adults, but this is critical to the health and the development of our kiddos as well, especially in these times of inconsistency and uncertainty. So how can we take that science and incorporate it into our real everyday lives with kids. So there's actually certain movements that you can do that help facilitate specific feelings within us. And I'm going to take yoga as an example, because that's one of the exercises that I do that I personally use as a stress relief. But if you don't like yoga, if you don't like the word exercise, or if your kiddos don't really light up when you say, oh, let's do some exercise, you can call it whatever you want. You can call it movement. You can call it your hobby, like whatever you want, make it a fun, creative name, and you can build that into their schedule. So going back to certain movements can make us feel certain ways. I'm going to use that yoga example. So I took a course by Ruth Goldine. She's another OT. And it was a course on using medical yoga as a therapeutic modality in pediatrics. So a lot of jargon there, but pretty much what it means is just using yoga as a tool with kids to affect all sorts of things: their gross motor development, fine motor, and then also their mental health, their emotional self-regulation. So we have all sorts of different poses within yoga, right? But opening poses, so I'm going to show you some visuals that I use with my kids in telehealth. This is Yogarilla. He's really cute. So he's showing off camel pose. So he's got his heart open, he's doing a nice back bend. Other one is triangle pose, so a nice side stretch. And these can facilitate feelings of expansion, having an open heart, which can be really helpful for those experiencing anxiety, anger, depression, just feeling closed off. If you think about really opening up, it's that physical movement of your body has the same effects on your mind. And then
I'm still trying to get over Yogarilla. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I love it. I love it. Keep going.
It's great.
It's wonderful.
And then forward folding postures. So we have child's pose, down dog, and even partner canoe, which is really fun to do it with your kids. It can help with grounding the body and providing some pressure and input to the joints. That is very grounding, calming, relaxing, calming for the body and the mind. So great for when kiddos need to calm their bodies down. So maybe right before they need to sit down and do a seated, focused virtual learning activity, they do some of these yoga poses, either to make them feel more alert or make them feel more calm, whichever your kid needs. Or before they need to go to bed, if they're having a hard time falling asleep, just kind of going into ourselves, cutting off all that sensory input can really help calm the nervous system. So we can use the fact that some movements help us feel certain ways. And like I said, this can vary from person to person. So you really have to experiment and see which exercises make your kids feel more alert, which make them feel more calm, and do the same for yourself, because it could be different. But we can use them to help us when we're needing to facilitate change in our mental state. So we can do it through movement breaks. Some schools or clinics will call them brain breaks. So for example, if our kiddos are needing to feel more alert because we're feeling really sluggish, you can stand up and do 10 jumping jacks or spin around 5 times in each direction. So really waking that nervous system up and saying, hey, let's focus. We need to be aware of what's going on here. Pulling in all the resources. And if you're needing to calm your body and mind, just participate in something more focused. I really like chair push-ups. So you just put your hands on the seat of the chair and sort of press yourself up. And they can do that 10 times. And it's great even if they're like in a classroom, because they're able to give themselves that input and that movement that they need without it being super distracting to the rest of the class. Wall push-ups are another one. And then those forward folding yoga poses are really calming. I really like the use of the visuals, cards, games. They can just be really motivating. Again, you're not calling it yoga or exercise, it's Yogarilla. And it's just making it fun and putting that kid-like spin on it is going to make all the difference. If you can get creative, use visual supports to help you, then it's really going to go a long way. Yeah, some other things I thought of just to add on that could be part of your daily activity at home is taking the dog for a walk after dinner as a family. You can incorporate those brain breaks into seated activities at home, or doing the movement before you sit down at dinner if dinner is a hard time to be focused. Yeah, I would say my biggest takeaway is that the movement doesn't have to last a long time. So if it's just a few minutes, you could set a timer when your kid is doing their work at school. For every 30 minutes or 20 minutes, they get up and they do a little bit of movement. So that way they're not just sitting at their desk with their focus on one thing. The world's kind of blocked out. Like, yeah, that's not good for our mental health. So as much as we can move and use our own internal resources to elicit those happy chemicals, those happy neurotransmitters, the better. So, and the other thing is incorporating it as part of your daily routine. So this way, it kind of takes the thought and the stress out of it. If you can do your 20 minutes of yoga or your 20 minutes of movement or walking the dog every day, after dinner, or every day, 15 minutes in the morning. That way, if it's part of your routine, it takes the anxiety out of, when am I going to fit this into the day? We already have a lot of things that we need to fit in.
Right.
So if you can incorporate that into your own schedule as well as your kids, then it's going to make it that much easier.
Wow. Thank you so much, Tabitha. That was wonderful. I love all the information that you shared and the visuals. And it's such a great reminder that it doesn't have to be something huge to remember that it's good for our bodies to move. It's good for our minds if our bodies move. And that's exactly what you just reminded us with science. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
From the Behavioral Alliance of South Carolina, this has been Working Through It Wednesday. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.